Hello, this is Mr. Huff, and I want to talk to you about engineering notebooks and science notebooks. Bottom line on a notebook is anybody should be able to pick up your notebook and understand what they are looking at. That's the level of documentation I expect to see. This means you're going to have to work neatly, use complete sentences, show all your work, and that sort of thing. We'll develop that for each class. We're getting computers this year. Why are we using notebooks? I did think about this a lot. Computers are coming our way. They are an awesome tool, and I do want to use those to produce formal reports. But for developing your thoughts, the research shows hands down that pen and paper is superior to typing on a laptop. You retain more information when you write it by hand, and because of that, we're going to use notebooks. Some things to think about for notebooks is never tear pages out of a notebook. Especially in engineering, a notebook can be considered a legal document. So if you have missing pages, that casts a shadow of doubt as to the veracity and usefulness of that notebook. If you find yourself needing to make little notes to pass on to people, I would suggest get a few sticky notes and put them in the front or the back of your notebook, and that way you have something convenient to tear off or pull out and pass on to someone if you need to. Never use pens that bleed through the paper. You're thinking on paper, and if pen is bleeding through from one page to the next, then you are making it really difficult for you and me to read. So don't use pens that bleed through. When you're making a correction, you can erase it neatly, but I would suggest just mark one line through it and go on. Don't scribble it out. Don't try to erase it. Just mark a line, move on. Always start your work by noting the date in the margin. So that's the first thing you do every day. What's today's date? Start with that. This lets you build a chronological history from your notes if you need to. Never just fold and poke handouts into your notebook. They will fall out, they get lost, and they're not associated with the pertinent information in your notebook. For science class, I will ask you to get a composition notebook, or more preferred is the quad notebook, the one that it's a composition notebook with graph paper instead of lined paper. This is convenient in a science class because you can always make a graph right there on the page without having to add an additional sheet of paper. Expect to use 2 composition books in the science class. If you are keeping up with your notes and doing everything that I ask you to do in there, you'll probably go through 2 of them this year. In engineering class, you'll be issued a project Lead the Way engineering notebook. This will be used to document your projects in, and then you'll need a quad composition notebook to take notes in and do concept sketching, to do activities and practice problems, and keep reference information. So you'll need the project engineering or Project Lead the Way engineering notebook, and you'll need a quad book. Each blank notebook will include a title page, a table of contents. I recommend a login reminders page, and then you'll have your note pages and reference information in the back. The title page should include the name of the course, your full name, and your class period. And you can also make it personal, include a drawing or a quote that you like, just to make, it's your notebook, make it personal. You need to reserve about 3 pages for table of contents. You will have 3 columns on your table of contents. You'll have the page, you will have the topic or title, and you'll have the date. If you keep up with this, it makes it easy to find information in your notebook. Really good things to note are where important reference information can be found, when a new unit starts, notes about new ideas, where vocabulary lists can be found, and where homework occurs. I suggest after your table of contents that you put a single page of login information. This is going to be important for classes that have more than one point of access for information. For instance, you'll have Canvas, you'll have maybe a digital notebook or a digital textbook that you're using, and supporting like simulation pages and practice services and that sort of thing. So you may need to have more than one login. It's convenient to keep all of this in one spot. All pages in a blank notebook need to be numbered at the top corners. This makes it easy for you to find information. This is how I want a typical science notebook laid out. I want titles at the top, I want dates in the margins, and I want your notes in the center of the page. The bottom 1 inch, I don't want any writing down in that region. The reason is it gets real sloppy if you're writing across that bottom last line or two. Go ahead and turn to the next page and keep working. So this is the basic layout I need to see on every page. So if I do a notebook check, and I usually don't, but if I do notebook checks, I'm going to check for all of this, and if it's not there, I'm going to hand it back to you and have you complete it until it is. In engineering, in a quad book, this is what I expect to see. Title at the top, and a line that designates the top and the margin at the edge. The date can go on the margin either on the left or the right, and then your notes inside that box. Any space that's more than about 1/4 of a page that is blank needs to be marked through and signed. So I suggest use your whole page for notes, but again, if you have a blank section, just mark it out and write your name there. This is a common engineering practice. And again, at the very bottom of the page, the last about 1/2 inch or 2 inch, make that blank. Don't write down there, it gets real sloppy if you do. Reference information needs to be taped into the back of your notebook, beginning on the very last page and working your way toward the front. Information will certainly include things like formula charts, periodic tables, notes, and important handouts that are not unit specific, that sort of thing. When you tape handouts into your notebooks, I expect you to make flippers. This means fold the page in half. Use 2 small pieces of tape to tape it on the inside margin or the inside of your notebook along this line here. This way, when we're looking at your notebook, it opens up like a page to read, and it makes it real tidy when you close it. So this is the only way I want you to tape stuff in. In engineering, you may be working on an activity and have to stop and take notes about something and then resume the activity. When this happens, you need to note where the information is continuing from and where it will continue to. So at the top of the page, you will put from page whatever, and at the bottom of the page, if it skips to another section of your notebook, to write down there to page whatever. This lets us follow an activity or some notes through your notebook, keeping everything consistent. And that's all I have to say about notebooks. Again, bottom line is make sure that you are documenting at a level where someone can pick up your notebook, read it, and understand what you're doing and what's going on.